For you to tell the American people that $7.8 million went to President Trump is an outright lie. It's a fabrication. Hold on, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because you're using businesses that existed decades prior to when he became president. And
you're saying all of them?
Hold on, and you're using HOA fees for multi-million-dollar properties that have been around since 2001. And again, even the fees that they pay for hotel rooms, that is a fee for a product, for a service. There's no service with Hunter Biden other than influence of the vice president or the president of the United States, and that is why we are here, because he will not answer questions in the exact manner that you have required for last Congress and the Congress before that. I mean, it is difficult to chase all of your logical fallacies surrounding this, but at the end of the day, he's going to do exactly what Don Jr. did. He's going to do exactly what you required of every other member, except every other person that you've subpoenaed, except for members of Congress who actually do have immunity, which you're pretending like you don't know what that means.
Jamie Raskin stood in front of a congressional committee and told the American people that $7.8 million in foreign payments went directly to Donald Trump. William Timmons went and read the actual report, and what he found inside that report destroyed the entire argument in real time. HOA fees, condominium maintenance charges on buildings that have existed since 2001. Buildings that were built and sold before Donald Trump ever ran for office. And Raskin knew it. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what gets uncovered here goes far deeper than one misleading report. It goes to the heart of how political corruption actually operates in Washington, and who it is really protecting. Hit like and subscribe right now, because this is the kind of breakdown that does not last long on any platform.
Trump's people say, well, he didn't take his $400,000 government salary. You know what? That's the only thing you're allowed to take, is your salary from Americans, not money from corrupt Saudi monarchs who order the assassination of journalists, not from Chinese communist bureaucrats crushing the human rights of people in Tibet and the Uyghurs. You're not supposed to be on the take from those governments. That's what our Constitution says. Then they say, well, we return the profits. These guys think it's, well, if it's a hotel, they could just keep the money. At least the Trump family understands. Some lawyer told them what the Constitution says. We return the profits. Well, guess what? They didn't give us the accounting of the profits, and that's not what the Constitution says. The Constitution says you can't take any payments at all from a foreign government without going to the Congress of the United States. It's not that you can't keep the profits from foreign governments. Do you guys understand what you're doing here? You're putting that
Gentlemen, time's expired. Chair recognizes Mr. Timmons from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to correct the record. It seems this entire hearing we're chasing all of these logical arguments that really don't have any merit. And earlier, before we recessed, we were discussing the ranking member's $7.8 million in foreign payments from at least 20 countries during his presidency, and I knew the answer. I knew that that was revenue, and it wasn't actually profits. Hold on, I will let you ask questions at the end of this. And you said, did I read the report? And so I did. And in the report, it actually specifically says these included payments from foreign governments and foreign government-owned or controlled entities to properties owned by Donald Trump, including Trump International Hotel in D.C., Vegas, Fifth Avenue, and this is my favorite, Trump World Tower at 845 United Nations Plaza in New York. So let's just use that one alone, because if you go down to page 20, footnote 23, it actually clarifies where this money came from to include the amount of money. And so what y'all did is you took a building that was built in 1999 and completed in 2001, and you have, it's 100 yards from the United Nations, so these foreign countries owned multi-million, $10 million, $20 million condos in one of the nicer buildings in New York. And I was just kind of shocked, because I knew that you were using revenue and you weren't using actual profit that the president or the Trump organization made. You actually used HOA payments. Do you know how duplicitous it is for you to use HOA payments on a $20 million condo in New York? Like, it is outrageous. No, you can, I'm going to go through. We're going to go through all of them, because you list them. And I see Saudi Arabia, $615, $422,000, Trump World Tower. And you go and you look, there's nothing there that is under $12 million. So you're taking a $12 million property that was owned since 2001, and you're saying that this is somehow similar to Hunter Biden running all over the world and selling the big guy's influence? These are completely different things, and the fact that you even created this report and you're using it to shield us pursuing justice to make sure that this president is not compromised because his son has sold secrets to China, to Ukraine, is so disingenuous, it's so duplicitous. It's not even misrepresentation, it's a lie. I'm happy to hear this from you because, again, you told me to go read it. I read it. That's what it says. I can read you in footnote 23 where it says, this report uses common charges or rent payments. All of these properties were owned prior to 2018. They didn't go out and purchase them because of the president. They were there for decades before this happened. That's the point. That's the difference.
Okay.
Don't let the
Would the
facts
gentleman
get in the way
yield?
of a good story.
Absolutely.
Would the gentleman yield? Thank you, my dear friend, for engaging in substance and not ad hominem attack. I very much appreciate that. Having said that, some of the payments, first of all, you said that there are lies in here. Can you find one factual inaccuracy?
So
There's not one.
For you to
In
tell
fact,
the
you're quoting us. You're quoting us. But let me make this point. Let me make this point, China gave $5.5 million.
It's Mr. Timmons' time. It's Mr. Timmons' time.
For you to tell the American people that $7.8 million went to President Trump is an outright lie. It's a fabrication. Hold on. And I'll tell you exactly why. Because you're using businesses that existed decades prior to when he became president. And
you're saying all of them?
Hold on. And you're using HOA fees for multi-million-dollar properties that have been around since 2001. And again, even the fees that they pay for hotel rooms, that is a fee for a product, for a service. There's no service with Hunter Biden other than influence of the vice president or the president of the United States, and that is why we are here, because he will not answer questions in the exact manner that you have required for last Congress and the Congress before that. I mean, it is difficult to chase all of your logical fallacies surrounding this, but at the end of the day, he's going to do exactly what Don Jr. did. He's going to do exactly what you required of every other member, except every other person that you've subpoenaed, except for members of Congress who actually do have immunity, which you're pretending like you don't know what that means. We need to get to the bottom of this. The American people demand it. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Excellent.
There is a specific kind of deception that is more dangerous than an outright lie. It is the kind that uses real numbers, real documents, and real sources to construct a conclusion that the underlying data does not actually support. It is technically defensible at the surface level and completely dishonest at the level of intent. And William Timmons just caught Jamie Raskin doing exactly that on camera in a congressional hearing with the full report sitting right there on the table. Here's what the report actually said. $7.8 million in payments from foreign governments were recorded flowing to properties associated with Donald Trump. That number sounds alarming. It is designed to sound alarming, but when you go to page 20, footnote 23, which Timmons did because Raskin told him to read the report and he actually read it, what you find is that these payments were HOA fees and common charges on condominiums in buildings like Trump World Tower at 845 United Nations Plaza in New York. A building completed in 2001. A building where foreign government officials and foreign government-owned entities purchased multi-million-dollar condos, units ranging from $10 to $20 million, and paid the standard monthly maintenance fees that every condo owner in that building pays regardless of who they are or what government they represent. That is not a foreign payment to Donald Trump. That is a foreign national paying building maintenance fees on property they have privately owned for over 2 decades. The Trump Organization did not go out and acquire those buildings after Trump became president to collect foreign money. Those buildings predate his political career by 15 to 20 years. Raskin's response when Timmons laid all of this out was telling. He did not dispute the underlying facts. He could not. The facts came directly from his own report. What he did instead was pivot to process, interrupt repeatedly, and attempt to run out the clock on Timmons' speaking time. That is not a rebuttal. That is what you do when you do not have a rebuttal. And Timmons named it directly. He called it duplicitous. He called it a fabrication. And technically, he is correct. Taking HOA fees paid by foreign nationals on privately owned property and presenting them as foreign payments to a sitting president is not a misreading of the data. It is a deliberate construction designed to produce a headline that the underlying evidence does not support. Now here is where the honest analysis has to go beyond this one exchange and ask the harder question. Why does this keep happening and what is it designed to protect? The pattern is not new. It follows a consistent structure. Produce a report with alarming headline numbers. Release those numbers to friendly outlets who will run them without reading footnote 23. By the time the correction surfaces, if it surfaces at all, it appears in the final paragraph of a follow-up story that gets a fraction of the traffic. The headline lives, the correction dies, and the political objective is achieved. The objective in this case is straightforward. If you can keep the public focused on the possibility that Trump's business empire represents foreign corruption, you accomplish two things simultaneously. You generate enough noise to make oversight of the administration politically contentious, and you draw attention away from a different corruption pipeline that has been documented with considerably more specificity. We have spent the last year watching the architecture of a funding structure get dismantled piece by piece, money flowing through foreign aid channels, cycling back through nonprofit structures, landing in the accounts of political donors and, in some cases, political figures directly. That is not a theoretical concern. That is a documented operational reality that congressional investigators have been building a case around, while hearings like this one dominate the available oxygen in the room. The Hunter Biden reference that Timmons made was not a deflection. It was a direct comparison of methodology. On one side, you have a former vice president's son traveling internationally, collecting payments from foreign energy companies and foreign government-connected entities, with no identifiable product or service attached to those payments other than access to his father's office. On the other side, you have HOA fees on a Manhattan condominium building that has been selling units to international buyers since the Clinton administration. These are not comparable situations. Presenting them as comparable is the deception. Mitt Romney's family connections to similar foreign business arrangements, which Timmons gestured toward, point to something important. This is not a partisan problem in its origins. The corruption infrastructure in Washington did not get built by one party. It got built by the permanent class of people who cycle through government, lobbying, consulting, and nonprofit leadership, regardless of which party holds the White House. The reason it has become a partisan battle is not because one party invented it and the other is clean. It is because one administration is currently dismantling it, and the people whose financial interests depend on its survival are fighting back with every tool available to them, including misleading congressional reports built on footnote 23. Term limits deserve a serious conversation in this context. The argument against them has always been that you lose institutional knowledge and that primary elections serve the same filtering function. But institutional knowledge cuts both ways. The knowledge of how to navigate a system also includes the knowledge of how to exploit it. And a political figure who has spent 20 or 30 years in Washington has had 20 or 30 years to build the kind of relationships, the kind of financial arrangements, and the kind of mutual protection networks that make accountability nearly impossible. Florida implemented term limits, and the political machine that had operated there for decades collapsed within a cycle or two. That is not a coincidence. The Save America Act, which has come up in multiple conversations around the same period, is relevant here for exactly this reason. Cleaning up the voter verification process and cleaning up the financial accountability process inside Congress are two sides of the same coin. One secures the input, the other secures the output. Both threaten the same interests. And the ferocity of the opposition to both tells you everything you need to know about whose interests are actually at stake. William Timmons did something in that hearing room that should happen far more often. He read the document he was given. He went to the footnotes, he ran the math, and he presented his findings directly and without flinching to the person who produced the document and told him to read it. That is oversight functioning the way it is supposed to function. It is rare enough that it deserves recognition when it happens. The American people are not stupid. They can follow footnote 23 if someone takes the time to explain it. William Timmons took that time. Jamie Raskin was counting on nobody doing that. He miscalculated. My name is Brian. If this gave you something real to work with, leave your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one of them. Hit like, subscribe, and do not miss the next one because we are just getting started pulling on this thread.